Thank you Soundcore for sponsoring today's video. What does a 4-year-old laptop look like? This year's the M1 MacBook Air. This to me is by far the best laptop Apple has ever made, and I say that with confidence. It's a device that I personally think fits the vast majority of people. It's insanely sleek, powerful, portable. To be honest, it's the perfect laptop for everyone, especially for those who are going back to school. Apple have a great refurbished program. I vouch for it. I bought quite a lot of things through it. I think it's the perfect way to get a laptop at a great discount. The MacBook Air off their website comes in at $759 for a base model, and these are pre-owned laptops that have been restored to like new conditions through testing and an inspection process. They come with a new battery, outer shell, and a full warranty, plus they offer you a 2-week return period as well as a student discount, which also applies to Apple Care and is transferable in case you sell it. If for some reason they are out of stock, Amazon and Best Buy also have their own programs. They do come in at a cheaper price. However, I'm personally skeptical about Amazon. I was reading a few forums a week ago and I'm not much of a fan of what I saw. On Amazon, I know they are also pre-owned products, however, not Apple certified. Amazon essentially states that they are professionally inspected, tested, and cleaned by Amazon qualified suppliers. The same goes at Best Buy with their Geek Squad program. Anyways, you can always give these a try, but just make sure you have a return window period that satisfies you. I will give it to Best Buy though, as per some of the reviews I've been reading online. For $600, it seems like people have been very happy with it. On top of that, if you have any issues with your computer, you can actually go to a physical store. Oh, and I heard Walmart too has crazy deals for these, but the big question here is, why in the world would anyone buy a machine with 8GB of RAM? It's such a fair question to ask, and I'm hoping that this year with the new MacBooks, we're gonna start seeing base models coming in with 16GB of RAM. However, I do think for the targeted market, 8GB is just enough. Look, I don't want to get too nerdy, but the important thing is to understand like 8GB on an Apple Silicon MacBook is not the same as 8GB on a Windows machine, or even their old Intel-based models. Apple have what they call unified memory, which essentially it's their own way of managing RAM. Apple Silicon is highly efficient with RAM because it uses a unified memory architecture where these memory chips physically live closer to the CPU and the GPU, allowing it for faster data access, reduced latency, and better overall performance. This is why one of the biggest contributing factors as to why MacBooks feel so snappy has to do with their new architecture. On top of that, the base model comes with 256GB of storage, enough for students because I know a lot of you guys tend to use either SSDs or cloud storage solutions, which leaves your MacBook with plenty of room, simply allowing RAM to borrow memory from the internal drive. This is just in case your apps demand for it, which does happen, and it will happen sadly. I've been using a Mac Mini with the same exact specs and setup at home as my iOS development computer, and trust me when I tell you that if you really start pushing it, memory swap will be a thing constantly. Now, what you need to know about memory swap is that I'm telling you guys off the bat, if you are the type of student that loves to store every single thing on their laptop, 256GB is a must avoid. The simple reason is because when your computer is trying to manage your workflow, depending on the complexity of your work, RAM will sort of start to fill up and it will start dipping its toes into memory. This is what happens to me every time I use my Mac Mini with my own personal mobile development workflow. Now, if your memory is almost completely filled with all sorts of school files, a lot of apps, music, photos, and so on, you will start running into memory pressure issues, which will then lead to a horrible experience. Your MacBook will essentially feel useless. Again, it's been my experience with my own Mac Mini when I push it to its limits. Thankfully, one of the really good things about the base M1 models is that these machines have two 128GB NAND chips, forming a total of 256GB of storage. So all the fuzz about the M2 Max having slow SSDs does not concern you. Memory speeds on this machine are really quick, and this also means that when RAM needs gigabytes from storage, those gigs will feel fast. Now I'm sure by now you're probably wondering, why in the world is your Mac Mini base model, that's the same thing as your MacBook Air M1, so slow? Well, you see, I bought the machine with the intention of pushing it to its limits. I literally use it and abuse it. I've owned it for about 2 years now, and although it's been great, for my own personal use, I've surpassed it. And as a student, I want you guys to be very much aware that it can happen. It all depends on, what you want to do for work. Are you going to be doing the same thing after graduation? Is the complexity of your workflows, are they going to evolve while you're in school? The MacBook Air base model, it might just not be enough for you. If you have the money and you can find a refurbished model with 16 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, then great. But if you can't afford it and you can't find one, let me talk to you guys from my own experience so you guys can just take it from there. The type of workflow that you can create for yourself using this laptop is quite vast. This is the type of machine that you can easily have multiple Chrome tabs open with tutorials playing on YouTube, a program like the terminal running, my coding editor like Xcode, Discord running in the background, and an emulator for my iOS app to run on. That's a workflow that is absolutely extremely manageable by the laptop. At this point in time, if you decide to start opening something like Lightroom to edit pictures and then open up maybe Photoshop to tweak some artifacts, you're just abusing it. You can probably see right now on screen how slow and jittery things can get. And you might start experiencing slowdowns. What I'm trying to get at is that this isn't a pro machine. You have to be smarter with the way you manage your programs. Just be cautious about what programs or tabs you leave open at any given time. You can't just have everything open and run 2 workflows at the same time, because eventually you will run into CPU overload and memory issues. This is the type of machine that will handle most of your programming related workflows, one at a time. Overall, I would say just avoid any sort of game development, and if you need to run multiple VMs at the same time, just avoid that as well. Video editing and photo editing is great. You can do lots and lots of Lightroom and Photoshop work, and as long as your video editing is nothing insanely complicated like editing a huge log timeline with 4:2 footage that needs to be color graded with a bunch of effects and tracks, you'll be more than fine. My recommendation is to simply avoid really complex timelines because you will run into performance issues fairly quickly. Music production is possible on this machine from what I've been reading. I found some user on Reddit that actively uses his base model M1 Air for music production and some ecosystem related tasks. He's got an intensive music production workflow with up to 30 plus MIDI audio tracks, loads of plugins with projects often reaching the 8-minute mark, and this yields rare and occasional slowdowns. And of course, anything word processing related, any Office 365 apps, using Google Drive, managing lots and lots of emails, having Spotify on the side, any of those apps hand in hand work really well. The only complaint I hear from accountants is how limited Excel is on macOS. However, it takes a lot to slow it down. This is why big accounting firms use ThinkPads. I mean, think about it. You don't necessarily need the craziest specs in the world to be able to run accounting software. Look, this is a computer that won't blow your mind in terms of power, but it will also not blow your wallet. It's still able to cover about 75% of people's needs. And because it's not a laptop meant for insane workflows, the battery life on this is incredible. From experience, I think most people will yield anywhere between 10 to 14 hours on a day-to-day work basis. To put that into perspective, with a Windows laptop, you'll achieve about 5 to 6 hours doing the same work. With very light use, you can have this machine go on for a week without charging. I know this for a fact because I've left them sitting around and after a week they are still alive. For the sake of this video, I did run my own battery test with screen brightness fluctuating between 40% to 100% and my laptop having Google Drive, Spotify, Discord, Google Chrome, and Notion open. From 100% to 50%, it took this laptop about 8 hours to drain its battery under these conditions with non-stop usage. I then left the laptop sitting on my Husky table from 50% with a bunch of shows running, and it took 7 hours to drain its battery to 0. It's a really good laptop when it comes to battery life. When it comes to build quality, it's not the latest and greatest, but it's so good. Remember, the latest and greatest often doesn't mean the best. In fact, I actually missed the wedge design this had. For a lot of people, including me, this is a word processing beast in terms of comfort. Sure, it's a laptop with a smaller display compared to the M2 and M3. We are talking about 13.6 inches versus 13.3 inches. And sure, it's slightly dimmer at 400 nits, but the quality of the display is still amazing. It's a 60Hz Retina display with a wide color gamut and true tone technology like the M2. The M1 Air has top-firing stereo speakers, which a lot of people liked.
To enjoy this a bit more than I did from last weekend's video with the brand new 992.2 Carrera. So far, I am impressed with the car.
But it has a 720p camera, unlike the 1080p camera on the M2 and M3. No MagSafe, I'm not sure if it's a big deal to you guys. The ports also work slightly different compared to the M3 Air, meaning that you can only do one external display at the time. However, you can easily dock it at home with a dual display setup by using your MacBook screen. It's also a MacBook without a fan like all the other MacBook Airs. It's got Wi-Fi 6 but Bluetooth 5.0 instead of 5.3. I do want to say though that with 5.0, back in the day I would experience laggy cursors. This mainly happened when I had my keyboard, mouse, and headset all connected through Bluetooth. I retested it and it all seems well, but just be aware that for me it was a thing on a couple of MacBook Airs I had actually. With all the traveling I've been doing, my number one priority is always bringing noise cancellation headphones, especially during flights since that environment can get quite loud. Knowing that, Soundcore decided to send me their latest Soundcore Space One Pro, an insanely portable noise cancelling pair of headphones that are great for any type of public transport. And so I like to call these the baby blockers. Noise cancelling headphones allow for immersive listening, better rest, efficient use of flight time for editing, working, listening to podcasts, and the list goes on. I mean, you guys have seen me fly a lot lately, and so being able to carry these and pair them with my minimal tech pouch is always a huge plus for me. Their super foldable design features this 5-segment headband where Soundcore decided this year to go out of their way to engineer what they call a flexi curve structure that really allows these to be easily foldable and portable. Each of those segments allow you to maintain a fold of 5 to 8 degrees to make it malleable enough to make it compact for efficient and tidy travel. I think this is what these pair of headphones are able to accomplish, as I am able to very much tidy them up and just throw them in my backpack without taking much room. And while that's a big plus for me, the icing on top of the cake is its 4-stage noise cancelling system. With the help of 6 microphones and this super smart noise cancelling feature, it can block out more noise around you even when moving. Soundcore engineered these with advanced PEEK drivers and polyurethane materials to make the sound clearer and more accurate. PEEK adds strength and precision while polyurethane provides flexibility for deeper, richer audio. The whole headphone is just so ideal for long-haul flights since it also focuses on pressure relieving with its headband, and slow rebound foam ear cups that keep you comfortable even during long hours of listening. With 40 hours of battery life and 60 with ANC off, ultra-fast charging and an aux cable input for your flights and a proper travel pouch, these make the perfect fly everyday carry item in terms of sound. So you can unfold to go with Soundcore. I'll leave a link to these down below. With the MacBook Air, you still have Touch ID, 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, and of course a hell of one great keyboard and trackpad. The MacBook Air M1 is literally till this day my favorite design, and I say this as someone that just comes from their old Air models. Overall, it's great hardware for the price. It's not the latest and greatest, but as a whole, this is a machine that you can easily throw around anywhere, not have to worry about damaging it. It's light, sturdy, it has great flex, and the display doesn't wobble much at all, whether you're typing on it or just carrying it around. The last thing I wanted to touch upon is resale value. I did a bit of research and I was looking at what a used model goes for online. I've seen all sorts of prices that literally come close to what Apple has to offer on their refurbished website. Here in Canada, at least, a refurbished MacBook Air goes for around $939 Canadian. When shopping on websites like Kijiji and Facebook Marketplace, I've seen prices range from $850 to $750 Canadian, which for 2024 is pretty amazing. I think the depreciation curve on Apple products is just insane. A laptop like this will most likely depreciate at a reasonable rate and way better than any sort of Windows laptops or even desktop PCs on the market. So you will 100% get your money's worth, whether you decide to do a career change eventually or maybe just expand your workflow when you graduate school. I think your resale value will stay reasonable. The point of this video is to honestly just shed some light on an older product that honestly is so underrated and not talked about enough. With the new MacBooks coming, I just wanted to remind some of you that there is better out there for you. Personally, I think that the M1 Air should be good until around 2027 or 2028. My cousins and my grandma, they literally still use their 2012 MacBook Pros, and I've heard that a lot of people online, they still use their 10-year-old MacBooks. I think this is the cheapest functional option that will last the longest. The only prediction I can't make is what the software requirements and progress will look like in the future, meaning that I'm not sure if with AI, 8GB will evolve well. I don't know. However, for most people, I'm fairly confident on the fact that it should be enough. Anyways, I guess I will leave you guys with this. I was dying to make a video about the M1 MacBook Air years later. I think it's such a freaking good machine. It's definitely worth the buy for a lot of people. That being said, it's time to go. They keep drilling and drilling and drilling on the other side, and I'm fed up. I'm fed up. Yeah. Anyways, have a good Sunday.